I'm going to start off with a little bit of design philosophy here. This is one that's a slimline, your basic slimline that you might make. It actually does not have a center ring. This one was in with a bunch of stuff given to me by a friend from the wood carvers. Here's an example of the European type that I'm going to turn today, that I made, and that's in Bloodwood. Here's an acrylic slimline, and you'll notice that I have made the bottom part where you grip much larger than the top. Can't really do that on the European because of the nature of the pen. Here's a pair of slimlines in walnut. One has gold and one has a gunmetal kit. You may notice that they make the wood look a little different. And I'm going to pass these pens along.
Ben, where do you get your pen kits?
I get a lot of them from Penn State.
What other sources are there?
Woodcraft and Rockler both. Wood Turner's Warehouse. Craft Supply USA also has pen kits.
How about, do you ever get any from that Wood Turning Z?
I have. I find they're about the same quality as the Penn State ones.
I got an email from an outfit a few weeks ago. I think I wrote down the name of it, but they sell pen kits for golf clubs. And I don't think I'd ever seen that before. See if I have it. But
There it comes.
it's called Themes Pen Kit Mall. PenKitMall.com is the website. But they have, like I say, they have three different versions of golf clubs that you can buy pen kits for. And I think the set of three were $36 or something like that. So, which I didn't think was too bad if a person's interested in that.
There's also a place in Hawaii that does a lot of like military and police and fire department type pen kits too.
Okay.
They also have some obviously Hawaiian themed. I'll try and remember to grab the name for the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, Ben, sorry.
Okay. Here's about a 1/2-inch pen blank. In theory, you could make slimline out of this. However, if you have a slight error in drilling, you will ruin the blank. I like at least a 5/8 inch for my slimlines. Here's a 3/4 inch, which is about the size I need for the European. There are pen kits that require at least a 7/8 inch blank. And here's a 1 inch that I kind of made myself. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it for a pen or I'm going to make it into a bunch of magnets. Pass those around.
And a lot of them take 7mm, right?
7mm is common for many, but also 3/8. And then you start getting to other ones where you have like letter O or 10mm or 8mm bits needed. So it's always pays to check the instructions online when you're ordering kits to make sure you have the right drill bit.
And the right bushings. 'Cause they
Bushings,
have different bushings.
Bushings depend on the kit. Some kits do have the same bushings. However, to figure it out, there are a few online resources that will compare the bushings for various kits. But, it's like, okay, you have to hope that they use the same names or similar names to what I was on those lists. For example, the Wall Street 2 by Woodcraft is also the bushings for a Sierra pen, but I have not seen a Sierra pen kit for sale in a long time. So, and that's a 3/8 inch tube, if I remember correctly. The European actually uses a 7mm tube, which is surprising for its sizes. And I tend to put my kits together with the name and the metal or finish on the kit and the wood, so I can keep track of them. I've pre-cut the blanks for drilling here today. The top one is the cap piece and the bottom one is the body. They are about a 1/4 inch different. At home, what I do is I will do 3 or 4 kits of the same type at a time, so I don't change settings as much. That way I can do one setup, do 3 or 4 pens on the bandsaw, switch, drill up 3 or 4 of them at once on the lathe. I use my lathe as a drill press for this. And I use a Nova G3 chuck with their pen jaws. The Wood River pen jaws I had, somehow one of them bent out and they no longer center properly.
So Ben, do you turn any of those pens that only have one tube?
Wall Street
Oh, is that the model?
is a monotube.
Okay.
And when I do monotubes, I tend to like to turn between centers with a turn between centers kit setup, which has a headstock piece at the 2 Morse taper and a live center for the tailstock. It makes it a little easier in terms of general setup.
If you guys haven't seen any of those, I've seen a couple of them.
I did not
It's
think
only
to
one
bring.
tube rather than 2.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit longer, but
Yeah.
it really does simplify.
The Penn State executives are 1 tube,
Okay.
and their tweezer kits are 1 tube. The Penn State tweezer kits, I'm a little confused because for some reason the head bushing and the tail bushing of the kit are off by about 0.02 of an inch.
Okay.
And I have to literally measure them with calipers each time to determine which one goes where. So I know, okay, this one's the head one. So when I put it together, I know which way it goes. They're just too close together to really feel even.
Do you do any fountain pen tips?
I have not. I've bought a rollerball kit that would be my first of those. And that one takes at least a 7/8 inch blank. There are fountain kit versions of this rollerball, from Penn State. I just have not gotten around to trying. I had to order the drill bits for it off Amazon because the Penn State versions would have been 3 to 5 times the cost. And for doing, a few pens, a regular twist drill is going to work just fine.
You don't use a brad point?
I do use brad point for most of mine, but a regular twist drill will work just fine. And the specialty acrylic bit that I have from Penn State uses basically a standard twist drill geometry. It is not a brad point. I have not used it, so I don't know how well it does. I've had very good luck with using my brad points on the acrylic resin type pens when I've done them. And this is just a 7mm bit. I got it out of my spare bits. I keep a 2x4 that I drilled holes into with the bits for 7mm, 10mm, 3/8 inch, and O, which are some of the most common pen sizes. Okay, both my chuck keys are out of the chucks. Hey, it's important to remember that because otherwise you will throw one, and I don't think you want to get hit by one. I tend to follow the Dennis school of thought on drill speeds. This is at the max this one set for is about 2,000 RPM. With pens, you can turn at 3,000 RPM. Okay. I keep my hand on the drill chuck as I'm doing this. I have had them pull out of the Morse paper. So, I drill a little, pull back to make sure it clears, and that's especially important with acrylics as the generic for the resin.
Speaking of that, I saw I saw a video here just a few weeks ago of a guy that was turning, and he was drilling a hole, and when he backed it out, it pulled it out of the Morse paper, and like Ben said, I mean, it flew it, and oh man, he could have got hurt bad.
I have never had one fly, but I've had them pull loose the Morse paper
this guy happened to be videoing what he was doing when that happened, and he showed it to us, and wow, that was something else to see.
I'm guilty, I've had one come out. Hey, don't fly.
You have it.
Yeah, put a little dig in my leg.
Yeah. As I said, I like to keep my hand on it because of that possibility. Even when I was just drilling that small one, this felt like it was going to come loose.
It seems to me like the best thing to do would be to back it out until you get right to the end, and then turn it down, and then finish it.
Well, that can help at times, especially.
I don't drill at that speed.
I don't either.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, about like 400, 500.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you burn
if
it.
it pulls out, it's not gonna go much.
well,
I'll even go down as much as 300 sometimes.
I normally use the spindle crank and take
Yeah.
it in, and then as
That's
it's
what I
coming
do.
out, I've had it pull it loose before, but it doesn't pull it all the way out of the taper, nor does it pull it all the way out of the piece.
Yeah, the
So,
chuck is-
so it's sitting there,
Yeah.
it's exciting, but it's not.
I've had that happen more than anything else,
Yeah.
but one of the reasons I tend to drill at high speed is I have to change the belt setting on my lathe to change the speed. So I tend to do a lot of things at the same speed.
At tennis speed.
Yeah. And and I found that the mini jet that I use, the spindle with this drill chuck, where it locks in the minimum distance, I may not be able to drill all the way through a chuck through a blank without having to move the tailstock anyway. Because some of them are just a little too long. So I got in the habit of just move the tailstock. You can actually hear a slight difference in the drill bit sound as it starts to get a little clogged. And I'm going to have to remember next time to check the tightness of my screws. They feel slightly loose today.
And that's the G3 chuck? that-
Yeah. Yeah, I have to use a spindle adapter for here. Thank you.
I'd have my knife up by now.
Oh, yeah. Sandpaper to roughen the tubes.
Yeah, I've done that without sanding them before, and the glue didn't hold. So it's a good thing to sand it.
What grade of sandpaper are you using?
This one happens to be 240.
Sure.
I tend to use 80 on mine.
Do you use what?
80. Gets it
You
nice.
really want it sanded.
I've had quite a few while I'm turning and let loose because
Yeah,
I didn't sand them enough.
I've had some that I didn't sand let loose, so I learned that you better sand them.
With acrylic blanks, I think some people will paint them gum so they won't show through, like the bushings won't show through.
So the tube doesn't show through.
Yeah, I've seen where they paint the tubes like black and then they, you know, they sand it, then they paint it so the tubes don't show through, depending on how thin you get.
With these, because the two pieces are different sizes, make sure you check your size before you start the glue up.
Or have an extra kit, right?
Why would you say that, Matt?
Because if you put the wrong one in the wrong size, you gotta get creative.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those laps or other people have done the same thing.
Oh yeah.
But they're with you, Ben.
Yeah, I've had ones where, understanding, I cut these on the bandsaw. What I do is I take the tube, I have a magnetic fence I use, Maglock fence. I put the tube up against the blade, bring the fence in just till it touches, back it off a hair. Then I make sure the fence is perpendicular to the blade, lock the fence down, remove the tube, get my blanks to cut, and then start cutting blanks. And that's why I say, you know, I'll do 3 or 4 at a time, because each setup takes a little time. And that way I don't do too many off. Now here, this one's got a little bit of extra space, but when I sand it down or use a barrel trimmer, it will be taken care of. Okay. I like the flexible CA glue for the tubes. It's, to me, gives a better hold on a tube.
It's a pretty good job on the cap, too.
Yes, it is a super glue.
Was it kind of thick?
This one's the flexible.
Yeah.
It's more closer to a medium.
Okay. Ah. Not a fresh fit.
Half the reason I'm wearing the smock is at home I wear shirts that are only worn for working in the garage or out on the lawn. So when I wipe my hand on there with super glue, it makes no difference. Interestingly, superglue does not tend to stick well to wax paper and does not dry quickly on wax paper. Thus, the accelerator helps me be able to work with it and move the wax paper quicker.
Not that I know, but I read that if you get CA glue on your hand and then spray accelerator on it, it will burn like a bandit.
It can burn, yes. I've had it burn. As you can tell, I got CA on my fingertips anyway. Mandrels and mandrel savers. I like a mandrel saver for working with these. The mandrel goes through it. You don't need the knurled nut that secures to the rod and spacers, so you can avoid that hassle. Also, it's less likely to bow the mandrel when you are turning. And I've got two different mandrels with me. One is adjustable with wrenches to loosen and tighten, and one's not. I'm just going to pass the one without around so people can see the threading at the end. Okay. Now comes some of the difficulty here. I start with the end ones. The larger one goes on first.
That's the tap side.
Yes.
You know, I've always turned mine the opposite. I know every direction tells you to turn it that way, but when
Yeah.
you look at it, the headstock's gonna have the least amount of vibration, and where your fingers are down at the nib, and that's where you want the smoothest transition. So I've always flipped mine around. But every direction I know tells you to turn it just the way he's setting it up.
Yeah, I'm just doing it, and I still follow the instructions for the European ones because of the bushings. Slim lines do not matter.
When you turn the pin, he's gonna turn the nib in towards the tailstock. Okay? I always turn the nib in at the headstock, because the headstock will have the least amount of run out and vibration. And that's where your hand is when you're writing something. You want that to be the best feeling. But every direction says to do it the way Ben's doing it.
Okay, the middle bushing here actually is 2 bushings. The this bushing here is actually a smaller piece and a larger diameter. The larger diameter goes towards the nib end. You put this larger bushing over it.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah.
question, before you get to this stage here, do you have to clean out your barrel? You have to clean out the tube after you glue it?
I generally don't have to. Sometimes I do.
Okay.
You may have noticed.
Yeah,
You may have noticed that when I was doing it, I turned one around
sure.
because it got a little jammed. So I figured I'll flip it, get a little more velocity to clear the tube.
Okay.
Imagine when I usually cut my blanks a little long, so there's a little clay in there. And then I just use a barrel trimmer, which also clears out the tube of any glue.
Yeah.
So you don't use a barrel trimmer?
I do occasionally. I like the sander better. It's just, I bring it up against my disc sander and I bring it down, and it tends to be a little better for me. I've had a few too many of the pen blanks shred up using a barrel trimmer, and not just acrylic ones, but wood ones. They'll what?
I said your barrel trimmer has to be really, really sharp. I agree with you, Ben. Otherwise, you start getting ingrain tear out stuff.
Well, I end up tearing chunks out.
Yeah.
So that, like, okay, suddenly the end near the nib now is going to be smaller than the,
Yes, I agree with you.
yeah. So I tend to go with the sanding disc sander, just
When do you do that? Do you do it after you turn it or before?
before,
Okay.
because you got to get the excess off. And
Well, that's what I wondered, but you're not able to do it here.
right, I already did it with these.
Gotcha.
And it also, like, I end up with a little pile of super glue around the hole, which needs to come off too. I do at home, under my the table of my disc sander part, have a chamfer bit I glued into a chunk of dowel, which I will use to ream out the hole a little bit lightly. which helps with anything right there, including metal flakes and all that will have come up from the sanding. Will help if I relax the I do a lot of my turning with the mid-sized carbides here. This one has a little bit of a radius. It tends to help avoid some of the chip out and catching that a true square will produce. I also color them when I put them on with a Sharpie, and then that wears right off as you turn, so you know which sections you've used. I'll admit the tailstock is holding better on this one than my lathe. I often have to adjust it a couple of times during turning, tightening it up. Jet Mini. I don't remember the exact, It's like a 12-inch and about 20 inches long. What?
You have to be careful with the saw line of your bushes.
A little bit, but not much any more really than you do with your high-speed steel. The bushings are not high-speed steel. They are not as hard as your high-speed steel. You can trim them down with high-speed steel.
So it's not hard to use the wood.
Yeah, but I also tend to use very light touch near them to try to minimize that risk. Okay.
Use the sheet of the guide for going, hey, I'm getting too close to getting into the, so you don't cut in too far.
Yeah, among other things.
Don't fire him, Bill, don't fire him.
Cut his tank.
Yeah, dock his face.
Okay, this is the center band for the kit. This is a 3/16 parting tool. They are basically the same. So the ring is slightly larger, but not by much. So because I have to turn a 10 in here, which is the size of that small diameter, that's why it has the floating bushing. Okay, at this point I have my tenon turned, and I have made the shoulder there as close to perfect as I can. Perfect is only in imagination, not in the real world. So now comes time to do sanding. And again, basically because I'm so used to doing this on my lathe, I'm going to turn for sanding very fast. And I start at a 60 grit. Then 80. $120. And even at home, I write the grit on the back to help me keep track. And I get about 3 or 4 pens out of a set of these in terms of before the lower grades, the higher grades, 60 to 120 or so, are no longer effective. The higher grades, above that, could probably go another 3 or 4 pounds. But since I'm going to do up more discs for the lower grades, I'm going to just do all of them at once. It's not worth saving a few pennies, basically. You actually spend less time on the bricks over 240 than you do on the first two. At 60 and 80, you spend longer. One of the reasons I like these 2-inch discs is you can't wrap them around your fingers or anything, which would let them tear your finger apart if they got caught in the lathe. You basically can't twist it enough around your finger to do it. I'm protecting his lathe bed. On my own, I don't bother. I just wipe it up afterwards. Okay, Yorkshire grit, and then Yorkshire microfine. The Yorkshire grit, I have found, will darken the lighter woods, and I'm not sure how to undo that. So a maple done with it will look a little darker than it should. But it works for me, so I do it. I try not to leave a lot on because it will fling it. Again, I'm using basically Blue Shop paper towels for application. I fold them over so that they're not going to be as easy to wrap, and you do not wrap them around your fingers.
So Ben, have you found that your grit to be better than like the Hunt friction polish and some of those?
Well, my next step is the Aussie Oil friction polish, which is what I use as my finish. Got to be a little careful. Try not to get much on the tenon, because you're going to be gluing it with super glue in a minute.
Is there a reason you don't reverse the lathe when you sand and polish?
For one thing, my jet doesn't reverse, so I'm used to doing it in the regular orientation. So that's why I do it the way I do. Okay. You have to shake this up fairly well every time. Even if you're only like 5 minutes, doing a second pen, shake it.
Ben, hold that up here so we can get that on camera, what that is.
Can you read it, please?
Okay,
Aussie Oil.
thank you.
It doesn't have a tendency to separate.
It does separate, that's why I shake it every time.
I'd recommend glass beads on anything that separates. That helps break up anything, makes the shaking easier to just add glass beads. And glass beads are inert to any kind of paint or polish, so they won't rust like a ball would.
Okay. I haven't had any real trouble, so again, I try to stand out of the line of fire. And here you want to get the heat going to help set the polish. That's why it's called a friction polish. Okay, on the ring here, there's a side that is slightly beveled. that needs to go towards the pen tip. And then I'm using Fixie glue for this. Oh. I do not use accelerator on this. I use a paper towel to wipe up the excess. Now to give that some time to dry. Now, these transmissions have a marking. However, I have found on the European they are often not far enough in at that point. So I end up having to test it a couple of times, which is fine because I gotta wait for the glue to dry anyway.
Where's Bill, Roger? Where's Bill? There you go.
Okay, it's not in far enough yet.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah.
show that on the camera, that where you put the pin in there and it's not far enough. You know, the one Roger got, yeah.
It should be coming out there and it's not.
So it's not far enough.
No. But I kind of knew it wouldn't be. I just pressed it to the line, basically.
Mainly because they're hard to get apart if you mess them up.
And I do not have my disassembly tools here. And it's still not far enough. Okay, it's just barely showing. which means I need to push it just a hair more. And now it is at about the right length. Well, there I've got it apart so you can see. And then you just and there you go.